going to be going through the November 2022 Edexcel higher papers. I recently asked you guys what questions you needed help on, and I'm going to address that in this video. So question 11 says, describe fully the single transformation that maps shape P onto shape Q. So the first thing that we can look at is how the shape is orientated. So has it flipped over? Has it turned around? So that's rotation. And we can see that the orientation of the shapes are the same. So we're dealing with an enlargement. So straight away we can write this down. And when we're talking about an enlargement, there's two other points that we need to talk about, which is the scale factor. And this tells us how much the shape has grown or shrunk by. And then the other thing is the centre of enlargement. So the coordinate where the enlargement sort of comes out from. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the scale factor. Now, if I pick one of the lines, so I'm going to pick this line here, we can see that this line is just one. This line here has 3 squares. Now we're mapping shape P onto shape Q. So we're going from P, which is here, to Q. So if I think about my numbers, this has a length of 3, and then it's going to this shape, which this one has a length of 1. So going from 3 to 1, we're dividing it by 3. So my scale factor is 1/3, because we're dividing it by 3. Now I need to find my centre of enlargement. So the best thing to do is to get your ruler, and you're going to pick a point on the first shape, and you're going to join it up with the same point on the other shape. So we're going to take our ruler and join up these 2 points, and you want to do it as far as you can on the page so that we don't miss any critical points of crossing over, and you'll see why in a second. And then we're going to pick another point, and you can pick any one, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to pick this point here, and the corresponding point is going to be down here, so it's these 2 points, and we're going to join them up with a ruler as well. Now that we've done that, we can see that the 2 lines have crossed at a point. The place where they cross is the centre of enlargement, and I just need to write down that coordinate, and that's going to be 0, 2. So it has a centre of enlargement at 0, 2. It goes across 0 and it goes up 2. And that is everything that you need to write for this question. The next question is question 20. It says Alfie has 11 cards. He has 3 blue cards, 7 green cards and 1 white card. Alfie takes at random 2 of these cards. Work out the probability that he takes cards of different colours. So if we think about all the cards that are different colours, we can come up with many combinations, because you can have blue green, you can have blue white, you can have green blue, and so on. Now the quickest way to do it is to remember that the probability of everything happening is 1. Okay, if all the events happening, it has a probability of 1. Now it's much easier to find the probabilities of the cards that are the same. So we're going to do all the probabilities minus the probability of all the cards, or the 2 cards, being the same. So this will give me the probability of 2 different cards. So finding the probability that 2 cards are going to be the same, the first option is that we're going to have to find the probability that we get blue blue, and it tells us that we have 3 blue cards and there are 11 cards in total. So the probability that my first card is going to be blue is going to be 3 out of 11. And I want to multiply on the probability that it's going to be blue again. Now, if we've taken out a card, we're not going to replace that, and he takes out a second card. If the first card was blue, there's now only 2 blue cards left. So I have 2 out of, and because we took 1 out, there's now 10 cards left. So the probability that we're going to get blue and blue is going to be this calculation here, which gives me 6. 3 times 2 is 6. 11 times 10 is 110. And I'm going to leave it as that fraction. Now the probability that we get 2 green cards, we're going to do the same thing again. Probability of green and green. So if we look at our green cards, we've got 7 green and we've got 11 cards in total again. So it's going to be 7 over 11. Green and we use multiply. And then the second green, 6, because we took 1 out of 10. Multiplying these numbers together gives me 42 over 110. And now the probability that we get 2 white cards is going to be, let's have a look. So we've only got 1 white card. So we're not able to pick out a white and then pick out another white. There is no chance that we can pick out 2 whites. It's going to be impossible. So that one's going to be 0. Now that we've done that, we can work out the probability that we can pick out 2 cards that are the same. So either we can pick blue and blue, or we can pick out green and green, or we can pick out white and white. Whenever we use the word or in probability, we're going to add the answers together, add the probabilities together. So we're going to go through and add these answers. So the probability of getting 2 cards the same is going to be 6 over 110, add 42 over 110, add 0, we can ignore the 0. Adding these numbers up, we get 48 over 110 because our denominators are the same. So we have worked out this part here. Now, to find the probability that 2 cards are different, we just need to do 1 minus the answer that we found down here. So our final answer, the final part of the question, is going to be probability that we get 2 different cards is going to be 1 minus 48 over 110. So we need to think, how much more do we need to get to 110? So the answer to this is going to be 62 over 110. Now, just before you move on to the next question, double check that this makes sense. So I want to do 62 and I'm going to add it onto 48. My answer should be 110 if I add these 2 numbers up. And that gives me the whole thing. Okay, so that's just a quick check at the end. So the final answer for this question is 62 over 110, and you do not need to simplify that fraction, just leave it as it is. Question 21 says the diagram shows a sketch of part of the curve with equation y equals cos x. P is a minimum point on the curve, write down the coordinates of P. So the first thing that we need to remember is that whenever we have a trig graph, cos and sine, they both go to 1 and minus 1. Those are the upper and lower bounds of the graph. So I know immediately that this graph can never go above 1 and it can never go below minus 1. Okay, so those are the first 2 main points that we need to put on there. And then we just need to remember that the curve, so this curve here, crosses through every major point every 90 degrees. So it starts off up here. The first major point is when it reaches here, where it's crossing the axes, and this is 90 degrees. So this point here is 90. And then as we continue, so we've gone to here, as we continue, the next major point is when it reaches this minimum point, and this is another 90 degrees. So 90 and 90 gives me 180. And then as it continues on, we add on another 90 degrees. So this is 270. And it keeps on going. So this is another major point. So this point here is another 90 degrees, which is 360. So looking at the graph, it says write down the coordinates of P. If I look at the coordinates, we are going across to 180 and down to minus 1. So the answer is 180, negative 1. I hope that this video has helped to answer any difficult questions that you had from the November 2022 Higher Paper 1 from Edexcel. I'm going to be doing another video for Paper 2, and I'll be going through the questions that people have asked a little bit of help with. So make sure to follow my page so that you get notified when my next video comes out.